Hey everybody, we are a little more than a week away from the start of Advent of Code 2020. If you don't know what this is or never participated before, it's a once a year coding competition from December 1st to December 25th. They release a new problem every day at midnight and people race to solve it. And there's global leaderboards and private leaderboards. You can pick any programming language you want. And it's been going on. I think this year will be its 6th year. I have participated every single year. I think the first year I learned about it halfway through, and I've done it every year since, and it is a ton of fun. This year, my hope is to record a short video after I've solved each day. So this video kind of serves as the intro, where I want to cover real quick a couple things. Number one, the framework I've kind of built up over the years, which I use to write and run my code. I write my code in C#, and also the approach I take to kind of solving each problem each day. So let's take a look first at my framework. So it's a .NET solution. It is available on GitHub. If you want to copy it, use it, improve it, whatever you want, you can look at Advent of Code 2019 or 2020. The 2021 basically just has placeholder files for each of the days with no code in them. Or if you go back to my 2019 one, you can see all my solved solutions in there too. But you can grab kind of the framework and use it for yourself if you want. So what does this do? So if I run it, so it is a GUI. It's not command line based, so I realize I just immediately lost some of my geek cred. But I don't care. I like GUIs. I like clicking buttons, and it works for me. So it just gives me a drop down here. I can pick which day I want to run, and it has an input and an output. If I go to 2019 day 10, right, you can grab the input and copy and paste it into here, but also, and then just hit run part 1 or run part 2, and it'll give me the answers in a second. But it also has some nice things, like if I just leave this blank and run it, it'll actually go and download the input from the website. That just makes things a little bit more convenient. And it does some other stuff. So when it solves it and it spits out the answer here, it puts that answer on the clipboard for me automatically, so it's really easy to control V it into anywhere, usually the website. And also because I can kind of paste in the input, a lot of the days have like easier samples that you can use to kind of test your code. So I can very easily grab this and paste this into here and run it. Oops. The answer should be 33, and the answer is 33, and make sure that my code is working. It does do a few other things for me. It gives me the ability to put debug output like you would on a console. So I think this day has some. Yeah, so in this case, my code is spitting out a bunch of debug output. And anything that shows up here in the output window, it also automatically writes to log files here. So I can come and open this in my favorite text editor if I'm kind of debugging or trying to figure out why my code is not working right. A few other things that this does is you might see here I have kind of a very primitive kind of test framework I built. And what I find myself doing is after I solve a day, I might want to come back and refactor my code. And when I'm going back and refactoring my code, I find myself constantly coming back and rerunning the problem to make sure I didn't break anything, my code is still working as intended. So I've just made that a little bit easier. I can come here and let's say I wanted to make a test out of this sample. I can paste this in here, run that, and assuming the answer is correct, I want to make a test case out of that, so I'll call this sample 1. And now I have a test case, and it just creates a file here on my local file system. If I were to go look at that file, tests, which one was this? Day 10, part 1, sample 1, 10, part 1, sample 1. And all this file is the input, a new line, and then the expected output. And my app gives me a quick way to run all the tests for this day or run all tests for all days. So I already had a couple tests called solution, which were the actual inputs and solutions. I got my sample 1, so that's all nice. The code itself I got a code file for each day here, and each day has part 1 here. Each class can be called anything, but it has to inherit from base day, which has these 2 methods that you override, part 1 and part 2. That's what gets called from the UI. And I have to toss a custom attribute on so that my code kind of knows what day and which year this class is for. And then the last thing I have here is I have this extension methods, where over the years I have written many helper methods that I find useful. And if you look at any of my code, I almost always use some of it. Some of those methods. In this case, I'm calling an extension method on string that basically just parses it up into an array of doubles. And I've got a ton in there, and I'm constantly adding to it. So that is the framework that I use. As far as my approach to each day's problem, what I do is when it releases at midnight, I race to solve it as fast as I can. It's gotten harder and harder in recent years to get on the global leaderboards, but I still have several private leaderboards with friends, and I obviously have to crush my friends in the times, so I'm always racing to solve them as quick as I can. Once I'm done solving it, I'm only kind of halfway done. Because I'm racing to do as fast as I can, I sometimes commit some programming crimes and write some ugly, hacky code for the sake of speed. But then, once I've solved it, I'll come back and I'll spend a whole bunch of time trying to clean up my code and make it as nice as possible for whatever my subjective definition of nice code is. And once I've kind of done everything I can to make my code as clean as possible, then I'll go and look on the subreddit and look at other people's solutions. And sometimes I'll get ideas from other people about things I could have done to make my code even nicer. And I'll steal those ideas and integrate them into my code until I've got it kind of as clean as I possibly can. I find that's a great experience because I often learn new techniques or tricks that I didn't know before by looking at other people's solutions. And then once I've done that, I'll publish it to GitHub and hopefully record a short video explaining my final solution. Oh, and the one other thing I do at the end of each day is I kind of look at the code I've written and try to determine, is there anything I've written that I can kind of generalize and extract out into a helper method that I kind of put over here that might be useful for future days. So that's my process. That's my framework. And hopefully you guys will be hearing from me come December 1st with the next video. See you soon.